Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame's induction of the class of 2022. It's time to enshrine 9 of college basketball's all-time greats. Please enjoy the grand celebration. The game of college basketball has grown into one of the greatest spectacles in the world of sports. All the way from Dr. James Naismith's Peach Basket to today's electric atmosphere and arenas from coast to coast, the rise has been meteoric. It has only happened because of those who have poured themselves into greatness. Coaches who build teams into champions. Players who perform the magic on the court. And contributors who bring innovation to the game. Each year since 2006, the most significant figures in that grand history have been inducted into the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame. Individuals whose knowledge, talent, and leadership have vaulted the game to prominence. Tonight, The NABC Foundation is proud to present the 17th Annual Induction Ceremony, featuring 9 giants of the hardwood. The winningest coach in Michigan Wolverine basketball history, John Beilein. 3-time national championship coach at the University of Connecticut, Jim Calhoun. One of the greatest players in UConn and Big East history, Richard Hamilton. An innovator, leader, and impactful contributor to the game, Jerry Krause. College basketball's first coach to lead 5 different schools to the NCAA tournament, Lon Kruger. A star on Dean Smith's first 2 Final Four teams, North Carolina great Larry Miller. One of the most prolific scorers to ever play the game, Furman's Frank Selby. A dominant scorer, rebounder, and playmaker at Providence, 2-time All-American Jimmy Walker. The game's only coach to lead 2 schools to 400-plus wins, Kansas and North Carolina icon Roy Williams. It's the class of 2022. And now, please welcome the host for tonight's induction show, broadcasters Lisa Byington and Chris Walker.
Looking group and a well-behaved group. We gave you the 5-minute sit-down warning, and you guys were all sitting. So welcome to the 17th Annual National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony. I'm Lisa Byington.
I'm Chris Walker.
And we want to encourage you to have fun. This is going to be a casual atmosphere. Clap, cheer as much as you want. This is a celebration of some of the biggest and the best stars in college basketball. So we will be your MCs here tonight. And for you to kind of get to know us a little bit, it's important for you to know that we're both fans of the game. We both played the game. Chris coached the game. And now we both cover the game. I am the TV voice of the Milwaukee Bucks. I am in year number 2 of broadcasting for the Bucks in the NBA. I'm still heavily involved in college basketball. Fox, Big Ten Network. You'll hear my voice on the NCAA tournament for CBS and Turner. That's my Super Bowl, quite frankly.
So obviously you guys can hear I'm the Robin to
That is not true. That is not true.
Well, I'm Chris Walker. Coming here has been unbelievable, an unbelievable experience, shall I say, and having an opportunity to share this moment with the 9 inductees, I'm humbled. I mean, I see some familiar faces. This has been great. I had the distinct opportunity of playing in the NCAA tournament, coaching in the NCAA tournament. Basketball's been a part of my life as long as I could bounce a basketball. So I was like a little kid in here walking through the experience. And the funny thing is, the best part for me is the pictures. So you see the old pictures, you get in the elevator, you see Larry Brown, and then I saw a picture of John Thompson in the back when he first started at Georgetown, and something happened. Lisa, something happened. So when I was a kid in 1985, I'm not dating myself here, I hope, but I was a kid in 1985.
I don't think. Yeah.
I watched Georgetown, because back then everybody was amazed by Hoya paranoia. And I'm from Houston, Texas, and I watched Georgetown beat Villanova I watched Villanova, shall I say, beat Georgetown in Lexington, and I cried because I was such a Georgetown fan. Would you know it, 4 years later, where do I go to school? Villanova.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense to me.
So that's the first time being here. That's the thing that, that amazed me the most. But this is your first time as well. What about you?
Yeah, when I walked in, and just as a basketball junkie, if you will, I got goosebumps. But, they play One Shining Moment on the TV. And if you'll notice, all the national championship games are there. It's one of the new displays here in this building. And the game that stands out to me is 1987. Keith Smart hit the shot, so Indiana beat Syracuse. I always remember it for that, but I always remember it because that was the first year of One Shining Moment. And again, I don't think I'm dating myself with this group, but I recorded every single national championship game, and for that year it was on VHS tape. So I went back and I said, what is this song? And so I took my cassette recorder and put it up against the TV and recorded One Shining Moment. So then I had it, put my Walkman on. So when I would go out in the driveway and shoot hoops, I was shooting hoops to One Shining Moment. Well, fast forward to 2021, CBS and Turner gave me the opportunity to be a play-by-play for the NCAA tournament. And I called 2 upsets, Abilene Christian upsetting Texas and Oral Roberts upsetting Florida. And wouldn't you know it, that both of those calls ended up being on One Shining Moment. So it completely went full circle for me. So every time I see that, and so that to me had a personal connection. So I stopped when I saw that here in this building.
That's an amazing place for sure.
Of course, we want to recognize the inaugural class from 2006, John Wooden, Dean Smith, Oscar Robertson, Bill Russell, and we have some incredible names to add to that list. And if you haven't experienced this building, how interactive it is, I encourage you to do that if you have time here tonight. But Chris, we have a wonderful 9-person class, 4 highly successful coaches, 4 remarkable players, and 1 contributor that's done a little bit of everything here for the game.
Yeah, it's a smorgasbord of love, right, for college basketball. And I say it again, when you walk through this building, you see all the different types of people that are contributing to why this game, and I would encourage you to look at the timeline. It is like so amazing where this game has come. And even when I talk about the Final Four or have the opportunity to work with CBS as well, you just think about, when I was a kid playing basketball at Villanova to where it is now, just the short shorts, Rip didn't wear short shorts, but just the short shorts that people had, or watching Coach Calhoun yell and scream, I mean, it's on the sidelines. It's just a different world, and so it is tremendous what has been done here, and I'd encourage anybody and everybody to make sure that they make this their next trip.
We brought up Rip, and you brought up Coach Calhoun, so I think that's a good place to start for a Villanova guy.
You know what's funny? I thought it was April Fool's when they told me I had to come up here and talk about Coach Calhoun and Rip. But you're talking about 2 amazing people that have done a lot for the game. Coach Calhoun, I had the pleasure of playing against him when he first got that thing going at UConn, and also coaching against him as well. And Rip had a great career, but for some reason, I wish Rip would get rid of that mask that he had, because they beat my Lakers in the championship. So I'm still mad about that.
Rip, you're okay with the mask? For my part, I grew up in the state of Michigan. I actually grew up a Detroit Pistons fan, so you're good. You're good in my book. Before we get to those 2, it's a very casual setup. If you're unfamiliar with the setup here, we take the pressure of putting speeches on these inductees off their shoulders. So it'll be a question-answer format. We'll bring up 2 inductees at the time, and we will start exactly there in UConn. The Hall of Fame career coach of Jim Calhoun, and the player that helped him take UConn to the pinnacle of college basketball.
Most big-time college basketball programs that consistently rank among the top have a breakthrough era that catapults them into the elite category. For the University of Connecticut, that pivotal move came in the late 90s. It was longtime coach Jim Calhoun and All-American shooting guard Richard Hamilton who brought the program to its defining moment with the school's first ever NCAA National Championship in 1999. The magical relationship of these 2 individuals ignited UConn's rise to a new stratosphere within college basketball, a place where the Huskies have since stayed for over 2 decades. Any conversation about the greatest college basketball coaches of all time would not be complete without mentioning the name Jim Calhoun. Combining his time at Northeastern, UConn, and St. Joseph, Calhoun reached a level of winning that few have ever achieved. Beginning his collegiate coaching career at Northeastern in 1972, Calhoun's success ignited the school's transition to Division I in 1979, where the Huskies quickly became perennial NCAA tournament qualifiers. In 1986, Calhoun became the head coach at the University of Connecticut, where he would take the program on a legendary run for 26 years. He elevated the Huskies from mediocrity to one of the elite programs in the nation. If coaching greatness is defined by championships, then Calhoun's legacy is unquestioned. He led the Huskies to national titles in 1999, 2004, and 2011, becoming one of just 6 coaches in NCAA Division I history with 3 or more crowns. A dominating force in the always tough Big East, Calhoun-led teams captured 10 regular season conference championships and 7 conference tournaments. In all, Calhoun won an astounding 920 career games, placing him 6th on the current NCAA All Divisions wins list. The lifelong New Englander stayed close to home to transform college programs, develop talent, and build champions. Truly a Hall of Fame career. A McDonald's All-American from the small town of Coatesville, Pennsylvania, Richard Hamilton took his immense talent to the University of Connecticut in 1996. He wasted no time becoming an impact player for the Huskies, averaging 15.9 points and 4.3 rebounds per game as a freshman on his way to the Big East All-Rookie team. Hamilton firmly established himself as one of the nation's best players during his sophomore season. The star shooting guard averaged 21.5 points and 4.4 rebounds per game and was named the Big East Player of the Year and a second-team All-American. As a junior, Hamilton simply took over college basketball while taking UConn to new heights. He led the Huskies to a 34-2 record, blasted through the NCAA tournament, and captured the school's first national title by defeating heavily favored Duke 77-74. Hamilton pounded the Blue Devils with 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists, and was named the Final Four Most Outstanding Player. He earned consensus first-team All-American honors and, for the second consecutive year, was selected as the Big East Player of the Year. Hamilton started all 103 games during his 3 fabulous years at UConn, and his 2,036 career points ranked second most in school history. He went on to play 14 seasons in the NBA and won the league title with Detroit in 2004, cementing his legacy as a champion.
Now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome 2 UConn legends, Coach Jim Calhoun and the great Richard Hamilton.
I gotta come over and give you a hug, Coach.
Public hug.
Yes.
You don't have to be so formal.
For the 15th time today, though.
No hug. You're right for me.
Yeah,
can't get a hug.
I got you, Chris.
You were surprised that you were first when I told you. I gave you the secret. It's like starting out the game on a 20-0 run. You got to get us going. No pressure.
Hey, no pressure at all. As long as I got Coach, who was the greatest leader in college basketball that I've ever been around. So just happy to be on the stage with him.
Yeah. It's, we were diving into the fact of how many times, and it's very few. I think we found out that this is only the second time that a coach and a player have gone into the Hall of Fame in the same year together. I'm told Judd Heathcote, Magic Johnson were the other ones, so you guys are in good company. Coach, let me just start with you. You know, when you recruit a guy like Richard, you never know what's going to happen. And now that things have come full circle, you're sitting on the stage of a Hall of Famer. How surreal is this moment for you?
It's unbelievable. You know, when they said about coming here for the Hall of Fame, obviously, when you spend your life 50 years in collegiate atmosphere, certainly at Northeastern and UConn, and over the last 5 years at St. Joe's, you never know. But with Rip, I saw him play against LeBron, a game that didn't turn out quite as well for him in high school. At the Plaster, we talked about that. But there was something about us, I told him at the time, physically, he was thin and stuff, but there was a sense of competitiveness. And he was long, he could shoot it, etc. Had a great family, incredible family, so I knew he was from great fiber. He had things that you need to be successful. And then for the next 3 years, I never said a good word about him, because I didn't want to know how much I loved him, respected him, and was on a journey together to win a championship and make him into one of the greatest basketball players I've ever seen in college basketball, and one of my favorites of all time, certainly.
Coach, let me stay with you. Like I said, I started my career at Villanova, and you were starting to build UConn to that power. I've always given John Calipari credit for the job he did at Amherst. Like, it's in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, how did he do it? But what you did in Storrs, and the way you were able to get guys like Rip and all the other players to come there, and then also you did it in a league with Jim Boeheim, Rollie Massimino, who was my coach, 2013 inductee, John Thompson, Luke Carnesecca, and you built that program and won 3 national championships. along with getting players like Rip, how were you able to do that?
Well, you have to go first, the players. When you get good players, you become a good coach. That's kind of an automatic. I don't know any great coach, okay, who doesn't have good players, at least good. But Rip and I talk about culture all the time. And I wanted to find a guy, and all you have to do, when I go to homes quickly and look at the family, how does he treat mom, dad, everybody around him? Because if he's going to be disrespectful to them, what do you think he's going to be like with me? My point being, finding kids with character who believe, who feel the same passion that you believe. Rip just wanted to be great. He didn't even know what it meant to some degree. I know he's a great player and so on, but he didn't know the price you're going to have to pay. And he paid all of that, and I think that's what I look for. Yeah, great players, but guys who were special in the sense of what they wanted and how much they were willing to give to get that.
Richard, we heard Coach and what he was looking for. What were you looking for?
Well, I always had a great father in my life. My dad, Richard Hamilton, who was sitting over there.
Raise your hand, Dad. Yeah, give us some credit.
Yeah.
Parents are important with these stories.
So my dad always had a strong voice. So I was looking for somebody that was going to push me and not going to tell me anything wasn't going to tell me things that was going to ruffle any feathers, just because they knew the potential I had as a player, as an individual. And Coach didn't pull no punches. When you walked in there, like he said, I'm just happy to hear him say all these good things about me, because when I had that UConn jersey on, it wasn't Rip Hamilton, it was Mother. That was my name for 3 years, but I bought in. I bought in. Everything he came and told me as a kid, to my mother and father, all them dreams, they came true. And, as a young kid, especially leaving a small town, 11,000 people, and never getting an opportunity to get out, and to have to trust someone, right? And once I first got on campus, Ray Allen was there. Coach told me, hey, you can be the next Ray Allen. And at first I thought it was, hey, no, he's just blowing smoke, just trying to get me here. But all the things that I wanted to achieve in my life, I put it in his hands, and he led me to the promised land.
The promised land being the '99 championship game, and UConn heavy underdogs to Duke, and you respond.
In whose opinion?
It's the media gets in the way of everything.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, I hate the media. They get in the way of everything. For those obviously who didn't know anything, UConn was an underdog, and you responded in particular with a great individual performance. Most outstanding player honors. We're seeing it up on the screen. What are the takeaways when you look at that?
Well, for us, coming into this game, we was a big fan of Coach Calhoun. We knew the history of the game and knew the history of UConn basketball, and we knew Coach having never won one before. So it was our job, me, Kevin Freeman, Jake Bosco was also here, Ricky Moore. Our whole goal was to submit his legacy. We wanted to win it for him. It wasn't about us. It was all about being right, being mentally prepared for the game. So at the end of the day, he can host that trophy over his head. But we should have got one the year before, but Roy Williams is here. He's a North Carolina guy. I don't know how in the Elite Eight we played North Carolina in North Carolina. I just still trying to figure that out. I don't know if Coach had that conversation with Roy but some reason why we played them there. But to come back the following year to get that opportunity again, because I was really thinking about going to the NBA after my sophomore year, and I had a hard conversation with Coach Calhoun, and he told me, he said, Rip, if you come back for your junior year, we will be national champions. And I ended up trusting him, and we came back, and we ended up winning the national championship.
You promised him that?
I did. Along with the fact you'd probably be drafted, I said 25th as opposed to 5th if you come back a year. And then some other Irish Polani, I think I might have told you. But more importantly, if you love somebody, you don't lie to them. You tell them the truth. And I thought the kids I had, Jake and Kev and all the guys we had, we could do this. We could do this. And one of the great things about getting accomplishments, you got to start with believing you can. Because it's not going to be easy over 365 to have to wake up every day when it doesn't look like it. But if you believe that, it can happen.
Coach, I'll just follow up on that, and other coaches have coached great players that are here tonight. What is it like, particularly in the world today with transfer portal and everything that's going on, what is it like to coach a great player? Because you've coached so many good players that have gone on to the NBA. Is it different than it is today? Like, what is it really like?
Well, probably today, but one of the great things about it, and I used to tell these guys, one of the reasons I love them and being around them very simply is, I don't have to work.
Yeah.
By that I mean, very simply, on their backs, I had a great life. And I did something every single day that I loved. And I saw, Rip probably hasn't heard this before, a lot of what I was in them. So that was my job. The old singing group, Boys to Men.
Oh, yeah.
That was my job. And I thought that Rip had everything that was very special. And he believed. And once you believe, you can do.
What was special for me, Richard, is I know you got your family here. You mentioned your dad. Your kids are here.
Yes.
And I got to watch them this afternoon go through, shoot some hoops. How are you translating your love in a positive way to your kids?
Oh, man. My kids, Deuce, Parker, and Peyton, I get emotional talking about them. For me, transitioning from NBA player, college player, to now being just dad. Right? And it's probably the hardest thing I ever dealt with in my life as a father. Like, I played in front of thousands of people, but I know that to get an opportunity to raise them and to mold them is the most important thing for me as a father. But moments like this I appreciate the most, because when I thought about retiring from the game, I told my wife, I said, hey, you know what? I want to hold on as long as possible so my kids can get opportunity to see dad play and to know that dad can hoop, yeah. Right? and she said something to me that was very important to me. And she said, hey, the kids ain't going to remember coming to the games watching you play. They're going to remember you taking them to baseball practice, you out there shooting baskets with them, you taking to my daughter to her rehearsal or dance classes. They're going to remember them moments. So for me, this is the new Rip. So to get an opportunity for them to be here on this stage, because I'm also a coach to them at times. Yeah. And a lot of times they don't listen. They say, Dad, get out the way, go in the house. Why is Dad out here trying to teach us basketball? So for them to get an opportunity to see something like this, hey, Dad was a pretty good player, right? So this is very special for me, but more special for them to get an opportunity to see this.
Absolutely. Can they beat Dad yet? Ooh, I don't know if you heard that, but there was a quick yes coming from the crowd.
Hey, I come from a town, I'm not going to let them beat me until they can beat me. So, like Coach always said, you got to put in the work. So if they put in the work, good things and special things can happen for all three of them.
And from my own curiosity, where is the mask?
The mask is home. I have it up in my office. I would have wore it, but people would have thought I was crazy at the time. I know masks is in these days.
I personally would have appreciated it.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah.
Still mad about that loss.
Guys, give these two wonderful contributors to the game of basketball a hand. The phenomenal coach-player duo at UConn, Jim Calhoun and Richard Hamilton.
And can I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
When I talk about fatherhood and all the great coaches that is getting inducted, I just want to say thank you personally. And also to tell you, your job is not done after these kids leave. And one thing that me and Coach Calhoun always talk about is me raising my kids. And I call him because he was like a second father to me, to actually give me insight of what a real father is supposed to be and how to raise my kids, especially in this crazy basketball world.
It's very well said.
Awesome.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you
for
Yep.
sharing that.
Love you, man.
Yep, love you.
Your family is lucky to have you. Thanks, everyone. In particular, my dad was my high school basketball coach, and so I appreciate the importance. My mom was equally as important in encouraging me to have the opportunity, so I love parent stories and passing it on kind of parent stories.
That was great that, again, as you're a coach, you never know the impact that you have on kids' lives. So when to have it where you have one of your kids getting inducted to the Hall of Fame and give you praise like that. Certainly he has a lot of accolades from UConn and the NBA, but I guarantee you Coach Calhoun feels that even more to get that type of praise from one of his former players.
It's the history piece. It's what Richard is talking about. It's understanding, it's the passing on, it's digesting what's so special. It's why this building and this facility is so special to walk through and see the history. Look at the pictures, see the names. And in our next group is a group of players from the 1950s and 60s. And you're talking about appreciating an era of scorers. Now this is pre 3-point shot. This is pre shot clock.
Pre a lot of things.
Pre a lot of things. But Larry Miller, Frank Selvey, and Jimmy Walker, they could play a little bit, Chris.
You know, they could really score, and it's funny, like doing research and we're studying up on them. I didn't really know any of them before we got this assignment, and I'm like, oh, those guys could really play. You know, you're talking about Larry Miller, who has a book, Larry Miller Time. I don't know why I didn't call it Miller Time, but Larry Miller Time about him. And I thought Will Chamberlain was the only person that ever scored 100 points, and I find out that Frank Selvey scored 100 points. And I was working out in the facility earlier, and Dan Gavitt's there, and I said, Dan, you know, he said, Jimmy Walker's the best player to ever play at Providence. So this is a great group here, and I'm excited to talk about them.
So we're going to take a trip back for everyone here in the room about a half a century ago to watch the stories of these three superstar scorers who were players who absolutely dominated their era.
College basketball in the 1950s and 60s was an evolving era that saw the advent of star players taking the game to a new level. The nation took notice as fan interest surged. Three of the most prolific scorers during that period were Furman's Frank Selvey, the late Jimmy Walker of Providence, and North Carolina's Larry Miller. From 1951 to 1954, Frank Selvey piled up points like few players have in college basketball history. The talented forward led NCAA Division I in scoring as a junior by averaging 29.5 points per game. For an encore, Selvey was nearly unstoppable throughout his senior season, topping the country's scoring charts again with an unheard-of 41.7 average. He was a consensus All-American and the Southern Conference Player of the Year both seasons. Selvey made national headlines on February 13, 1954, when he poured in 100 points versus Newberry, hitting 41 of 66 shots in a game. That is a scoring mark that has yet to be matched in Division I. Selvey was the top pick in the 1954 NBA draft by the Baltimore Bullets and earned 2 All-Star berths during his 9-year pro career. Jimmy Walker simply did it all during his collegiate career at Providence from 1964 to 1967. He was a scorer, averaging 25.2 points per game over his 3 seasons. He was a hard-nosed rebounder, notching 6.3 boards per game. And he was a playmaker, averaging 5.3 assists per game. Walker's all-around abilities led Providence to 2 NCAA tournaments and an NIT berth. He was a consensus All-American as a junior and senior, and the 1967 Eastern Player of the Year. Regarded as one of the greatest players in Friars basketball history, Walker's 2,045 career points ranked 3rd all-time at the school. His scoring average of 30.4 points per game as a senior led the nation and is the program's all-time highest single-season average. The Detroit Pistons selected Walker number 1 overall in the 1967 NBA draft, and he went on to become a 2-time All-Star. A star on Dean Smith's first 2 Final Four teams of the 1960s, Larry Miller still today is heralded as one of the all-time North Carolina greats. Not only that, many consider Miller as the player that helped launch the Tar Heels' ascension as a college basketball powerhouse. From 1965 to 68, Miller was the on-court leader Coach Smith relied on to build a consistent winner. He gave Smith his first back-to-back 25-plus win seasons and Final Four berths. In all, Miller scored 1,982 points, a mark that remains in the top 10 of the Tar Heel record book. The 2-time All-American is one of only 3 players in UNC history to average 20 points or more in 3 different seasons. He is also the only Tar Heel to win Atlantic Coast Conference Player of the Year honors twice. Miller went on to play 7 seasons in the ABA, where in 1972 he set a league record with 67 points in a game.
The late, great Jimmy Walker passed on at the age of 63 in 2007, but we're happy to say that there's family. His family is here in attendance, and his daughter will represent him at our medal ceremony here later, and we look forward to meeting her and them at that point. Ladies and gentlemen, though, please welcome to the stage, the Hall of Fame stage, Frank Selby's wife, Barbara, and North Carolina legend, Larry Miller.
Met before.
Yes, we have.
Lovely ladies. Lovely.
I saw Larry, so we got a kind of a tour this afternoon, and we walked past this theater, and the movie that they were showing was about Coach Krause, and there was one person that was just sitting in the theater, and it was Larry, just taking it all in. And so I said, do you mind if I sit down with you and visit with you?
Why would you think I was sitting there? Waiting for you to come by.
You look so lonely. It was the least I could do.
I was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Barbara, thank you here for representing your husband, Frank.
I'm so sorry that Frank.
His health, we know, has kept him from being here.
Yeah, but I'm sure that most of these people saw him play the 100-point game because at least 1 million people have told me they were there.
That's amazing. ESPN, pre all that. But Barbara, let's start with you and put in perspective what this induction does mean for you, for Frank, and your family.
I have to tell you that Frank Selby is the most amazing person. He came up from nothing. He lived, there were 12 people in his family. They lived in a 2-bedroom house. He was not able to try out for basketball until the second semester of his junior year because he had to leave Kentucky and go to Indiana to pick tomatoes to make money for his family. So he didn't get back to November, so he wasn't eligible. But when he did start to play in his junior year, he played so well he made the All-Star team, Ohio, and Kentucky, and then the East-West, and he was the most valuable player. And then all the colleges started knocking on his door. Well, it was too late because Furman had already signed it. They had already offered him a scholarship, and he so much wanted to go to college. And he also so much wanted to go to Kentucky, and it was too late, but he kept his commitment to Furman. He's a very honorable young man, and he never regretted for a moment that he went to Furman. There he was able to play, and that's what he wanted to do. He loved, that's the reason he played, because he loved it so. And he never wanted fame or fortune. And he ended up, he was the most celebrated college player of that day. He was on the front of Look and Life magazine, on all the television shows, and people loved and admired him because he was such a fine, outstanding young man. He got a great education, and he made lifelong friends at Furman.
Well, for someone who wasn't hunting the spotlight, how did he handle that attention from your?
Fabulously. He is the most humble. I wish that I could meet him here, but he is so proud of what he did, but he has no conceit, and he still gets fan mail at least 3 or 4 times a week. from all over the world because he was an outstanding young man. Billy Graham wanted him to go on to join his crusade. He was such a nice guy.
Real nice.
That's very nice.
Larry, Carolina great. Obviously, Coach Williams is here. North Carolina's had so many great players. Clearly, you were the first superstar that Coach Dean Smith had. Now, we had some fun earlier when we were talking, and the funny thing is that you said it almost didn't happen because it was between North Carolina and Duke in your recruiting.
Right down to the minute. And my parents were so gracious about that because a lot of kids, their parents force them to go to schools. And right down to the wire. I mean, I'm talking about they're offering the scholarship and I'm getting ready either to take one of them. And right down to the minute, I asked my parents, what do you think? Which school do you like? And they would not tell me which school they liked. They said, well, we like Duke, we like this for that reason and all that stuff, but we can't tell you where to go, it's your choice. And to this day, I'll never forget them for that because it took me right down to the wire. I mean, right down to the last second before I took one of the schools.
You were an elite scorer. There was no three-point line back then, and you've been talking about going to the ABA, scored 67 points. What made you such a great scorer?
I don't know, to tell you the truth.
Scored a lot of points.
Yeah, I just had that, the knack to I was able to, make my own points a lot of times, create situations and stuff like that. I had a lot of great players around me, and so that gave me the opportunity, to show my talents. And I had a lot of, really super players too. But it all came down to, the heart, what's in the heart and what I wanted to do. When you told me to drop that ball, I was ready to go get it.
Larry, you are the 13th member from North Carolina to be inducted into the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame. And now it'll be the name of Larry Miller with James Worthy, Sam Perkins, Dean Smith, Roy Williams, players and coaches. How do you put that in perspective?
Well, I always wanted to be lucky 13. And it's just an honor to be among them because I know a lot of them, I knew all of them, but I respect them all. And I really enjoy being from North Carolina, being from that group of people.
I have one question. How do you ever talk about the 100-point game? Like, what was going through Frank's mind? Has he ever mentioned it when people ask him about scoring 100 points in a game? That's such an amazing feat.
That was before the three-pointer.
Right.
And I wasn't around at that time.
Right.
We met later after he was in pro ball, but he doesn't talk much about his accomplishments at all. Everybody else does. When I got to Greenville, after we were married, I really didn't know that much about him, except he was, that he played pro ball and stuff. I found out really soon.
And you let me in on a secret. Bob Pettit introduced you guys.
Absolutely. Bob Pettit was a friend of mine, and he was Frank's roommate. And he came to New York. I was in New York working, and he said, I don't like that you're here having a career, a good Southern girl. He said, I'm going to find a guy for you. And I said, Bob, I'm having a great time. And he said, he called a few months later, and he said, Barbara, I found him. And I said, you found who? He said, I found the guy for you. He said, he just got out of the Army. And so, do you want me to tell the story about we went to, I had a blind date. And I said, okay. I said, what's wrong with a pro basketball player? He has to have a blind date. And he can't find a girl to date. So we went to the garden, and going up, they had huge pictures on the wall. And there's a picture of Frank, and I said, hot dog, he is really cute. Well, when I got up to the into the stands, they didn't take care of you like they do now. We're up in the boonies, and he came out with the rest of the players, and I said, "I'll be darned, I'm going to be taller than he is." So I went home and changed my shoes. And then when he came out of the dressing room, of course, I'm going like, "Hey, Frank."
Larry, one final question. What was it like? I remember Dean Smith later on in his career. What was it like to play for Dean Smith early in his career?
Well, actually, it was tough because we had some challenges. Things weren't going exactly the way Bobby Lewis and I thought they would when we got down there, because here we are, it's going into my sophomore year, and we're not doing all that well. We weren't ranked in the top, 20. And so we were actually thinking about moving on to another school. But then for some reason we took a back step. And that summer we talked about it and decided to, stick with him, so to speak. And then luckily we got some other recruits came in. But, he would have been on a rough shape if both of us would have left and transferred. So it was kind of a learning experience together. We grew up, so to speak, together. But he was a wonderful man, no doubt about it. And I enjoyed the life out of the experience. We became lifelong friends and stayed in touch all those years. And for his retirement or his birthday, he gave us all a $200 check and said, all the teammates, it didn't matter who they were, he said, sent them $200 and said, "Go out and have a nice dinner on me." And that was our last experience together with him. A wonderful person.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Larry, I will sit in the theater anytime.
Hey.
Larry and Barbara, thank you for coming on stage. Ladies and
you.
gentlemen, another hand, please, for the late Jimmy Walker, Barbara Selby representing her husband, Frank, and Carolina Blue, Larry Miller. Best parts about a night like tonight is just hearing those stories, right? From the personal perspectives of the people who have been touched the most by other Hall of Famers. My two parents are coaches and teachers. I mentioned that my dad was my high school coach, and so I always looked at coaching and teaching as two blessed professions. Because of this, Chris, you have the opportunity to just shape and mold young adults, which the two coaches we're going to talk about had many opportunities to do that, and they did it in such fantastic ways.
Yeah, they did it in different ways as well. Coach Beeline did it all the way from the bottom up, as Greg would say, from the bottom to the top. And Coach Kruger, I'm still upset with, because when I was the head coach at Texas Tech, he put me out of business, which is why I'm sitting here right now. So thanks, Coach Kruger. I appreciate that.
Coach Kruger over here?
Yeah, put him over there next to you.
Distance you guys a little bit. But obviously two coaches that have made such an impact at, as Chris was alluding to, many different stops. So we take a look back now at the careers of two incredible coaches who built winners both on and off the court.
Building a successful college basketball program takes a coach who relentlessly pursues every advantage that creates their unique winning formula. Repeating excellence over and over again requires both a special mindset and longevity in the game. Two coaches who poured themselves into this art for over 4 decades and established monumental success at multiple schools, John Beeline and Lon Kruger. At every stop on his coaching trail, John Beeline made sure of 2 things. 1, build winning teams, and 2, build young men of character. Quite simply, Beeline won wherever he coached. In a stellar career that started at the high school level and concluded in the NBA, it was on the college basketball hardwoods where Beilein performed most of his magic. After 5 years each at Canisius, Richmond, and West Virginia, Beilein took the reins at the University of Michigan in 2007 and began a brilliant 12-year run en route to becoming the winningest coach in Wolverine history. The humble leader consistently had Michigan in the battle for titles in the Big Ten and the Big Dance. Beilein piloted Michigan to the national championship game in 2013 and again in 2018. During that span, few college basketball programs could match the level of excellence of his Wolverines. His lifetime of coaching produced a whopping 829 wins. He owns the unique achievement of posting 20-win seasons at 4 different levels: high school, junior college, NCAA Division II, and then in Division I. Possibly even more befitting, Beilein was honored with the John Wooden Keys to Life Award in 2019 in recognition of his integrity and his leadership. Most certainly, it's been a coaching career worthy of celebrating. Growing up in the small town of Silver Lake, Kansas, Lon Kruger made basketball his life at an early age. He chose to play collegiately at nearby Kansas State University, and that experience laid the foundation for what would become a Hall of Fame coaching career. As a point guard under mastermind Jack Hartman, Kruger learned the intricacies of the game while becoming a 3-time Big 8 Player of the Year. The home state hero then transitioned to coaching under Hartman's tutelage as an assistant. Kruger launched his head coaching career at Texas Pan American in 1982. 4 years later, he was back in Manhattan, Kansas to replace his mentor at K-State. After 4 seasons at his alma mater, Kruger continued on a remarkable journey at the highest of levels, including Florida, Illinois, UNLV, and Oklahoma. Kruger holds the distinction of being the first Division I coach to lead 5 different programs to the NCAA tournament. He made 20 total NCAA tournament appearances, including 2 Final Fours, in 1994 with the Gators and in 2016 with the Sooners. In all, Kruger amassed 674 wins, ranking among the top 40 in Division I history, and consistently competing for championships. He was a 4-time Conference Coach of the Year. Kruger's coaching success also included stints in the NBA, most notably with the Atlanta Hawks. Coming full circle with his Kansas roots, Kruger now enters the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame in Kansas City, a short drive from where it all began.
Certainly a short drive indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 wildly successful head coaches, John Beilein and Lon Kruger.
Coach, we're supposed to go over there, Coach. Coach, I talked to you earlier. You were a heck of a player.
Well, I was fortunate to play on some really good teams. That's what it came down to. A lot of good players around, and we had a lot of fun together. And a lot of them are here tonight, and I appreciate that very much. But, those 4 years of time at Kansas State were very special and much appreciated. And playing for Coach Hartman, you can't get a better mentor than that in terms of the X's and O's and teaching you how to play the game right.
Well, I will say my co-host at CBS, Brent Stover, he's a K-State alum. He would love to be sitting here right now because that's all he talked about is Kansas State.
Yeah, appreciate it. A lot of good K-Staters out there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Silver Lake, Kansas, though, Coach, what, about an hour and a half away?
We can get there in about an hour and 10, I think.
Yeah, okay. Depends on how fast you drive, right? What kind of
that's true.
What kind of lead foot you have. Tell us about it. Tell us about growing up there and the success that you eventually had then in the state.
I knew at the time I had a pretty good deal growing up. Great parents, put everything. I was the oldest of 6 children, and parents were all about making our opportunity better than they had. And they were always about others, what they could do in the community. Town of 800 people. 35 in our graduating class, which gave me the opportunity to play football, basketball, and baseball because all the guys had to. to field a team. So we were fortunate in that way. But it was a great experience. And I think looking back on it as I've gotten older, the value of that beginning and understanding, Coach Calhoun mentioned it's about character and integrity, being about others, we're so special, and I think the foundation for a lot of what we did.
I got a question for both. I'm going to start with you, Coach Beilein. I mean, and we talked about this earlier. I think it's good for people to hear, like, you started, at every level, and you just work your way up. And I think it's amazing for anybody who has aspirations of being a coach. And Coach, you coached at 5 different schools and took them to the NCAA tournament, which is amazing as well. But Coach, did you ever doubt whether you could do it? You went from high school and you moved up into playing Villanova, my alma mater, in the national championship game, but did a great job of winning as coach in Michigan. Do you ever doubt every level?
Oh, every time. Every time. I think there was these moments that, are we really going to make it? And Kathleen and I, we bought and sold 9 houses and moved 7 times, and every one of our children went to graduate from a different high school in a different state. And so, and in their senior year, several times, my daughter here is saying, "You just ruined my life," when we moved to another place. But you always doubt it, but I also think that's when you move around with programs like Lon and I did, you also know you have a family, you've got to make it. There's no other way than to make it. And so you grind away and do the best you can to get it done. And I think that doubt actually helps you, to prosperity later on.
Coach, I never shared this with you, but a lot of the basketball that I covered is Big Ten basketball. And I had a chance to go to your practice in year number 1 in Ann Arbor. And I'm sitting there in the stands watching this practice, and I'm thinking, man, he breaks down the fundamentals. and I was so impressed by that. I mean, I played college basketball at Northwestern, and we definitely did fundamentals, but not to that extent, not to that detail. And I think that is part of the key to your success, your mind, the way that you can communicate the X's and O's to your players. How have you developed that as a coach to translate that so well to your players?
Well, I think Jim knows it, Lon knows it. When you're at Pan American, when you're at Northeastern, you have one season in March. And so you may sacrifice games in the early years because you're doing dribbling drills and passing drills and not putting in plays because there is no at-large bids coming to you. Right. So you got to be at your best in March. Now when that happens, now you get to the high level and your teams are good in March. If you don't, I said, I'm not going to change. If we ever get to a West Virginia, to a Michigan, we're not going to change. And I think that's one of the reasons we were good, when it counted at the end of the year.
Coach, I have this saying that Michael Jordan made the game global. LeBron James made it mobile, right? You were a mobile coach. You went to 5 different universities and took them to the NCAA tournament. I mean, talk about what that experience was like, because it's not easy. But yet you were able to recreate that magic at each stop.
Yeah, and at each stop, we were very fortunate. We had great leadership, at the universities. Joe Castiglione, maybe the best ever athletic director, was at Oklahoma. And we had the good fortune of working with people like that at every stop. And again, it was really good because, the part I miss most about coaching is the time with our staff and players in early season practices. That time with staff and the people that you're surrounded with, is so critical. If you can't enjoy them every day, then you're probably doing something less than you could be doing. So we were very fortunate. Every stop, great people, great players, and very good experiences.
How special is it to have your son coaching at UNLV? Great win the other night. I mean, It's off to a great start. I mean, you got to feel proud to see that happening.
Well, we are. Barb and I, 2 kids, Kevin now at UNLV and her daughter Angie, and family living in Puerto Rico. But, seeing your sons and daughters doing something they love to do, I think as parents, that's our goal. If we can, raise them in a way that they have the opportunity to do something they enjoy doing and have a passion for, then things are going to work out pretty well. And he certainly has a passion for coaching basketball in Las Vegas as well. Being that he played his 5th year as a grad transfer with the Rebels. So very proud of him.
Coach Beilein, in particular, a 6-year period we mentioned that you're the all-time winningest coach in Michigan basketball history, but 2013, 2018 in particular, that 6-year period was impressive. Few schools did what you did, won as much as you did, got to 2 national championship games during that period. Other than really great players, what was the key to the success if you go back to that 6-year stretch?
First of all, you have the great support of the administration, the Michigan overall, and great staff. Those are huge. And but we changed our mindset a lot during that time, knowing the competition, and we valued so much more in recruiting. Like I think Jim said it earlier, but it was like having Rip Hamilton type of guys. Not as good as Rip. We didn't get anybody that good. We might have won it all. We had Rip, but we just getting the right person who fit Michigan, who was all in as to be a team guy. And we had a lot of pros come through there too, but they knew, listen, unpack your bags like you're here 4 years. We wanted guys committed to the program. It would help if they could shoot a little bit. We like shooters a lot. But it's just people that get this culture of we're about growth mindset, about development. You come here and you might have to wait your turn, but you're going to be able to do it. Like Roy's done the same thing. Just these programs where there is a culture that everybody understands. When you have the right culture, it's like a immune system. You'll have up and downs in a season, but you still stay healthy because everybody's going to lose games. And once we got that established, we didn't look back.
Was there a player or players that helped make that switch?
You'll never get me to answer that question because they're listening somewhere right now.
I asked the question thinking, I don't think he's going to answer it, but I'm asking.
No, I mean, there were so many, but to me, a former walk-on at Wheeling Jesuit, right? Every guy on that team, whether Trey Burke was player of the year, but Josh Bartelstein was our walk-on, that was a captain. Every one of those guys had a big part in us, going to the final game and having some great wins. Sorry, Kansas fans, about that one with Trey Burke.
Incredible shot. I remember watching it.
That was a great shot. But I think I always valued every player to be almost the same as far as what he could contribute to our team. And then I made sure the good players played in games. So we really, it was great, but you have to have a lot of people know who the good players are and then have enough good players and have a great staff. That was key for us too.
Now, you both started coaching in 1982, worked at 6 different universities. Starting with you, Coach Kruger, how were you able to replicate it everywhere you went? 6 different universities. I mean, you've been coaching a long time, Coach.
Well, again, I think as any coach will say, it starts with surrounding yourself with good people. Great assistant coaches, great staff. Certainly players. It doesn't. I think just being consistent with what your expectations are every day, and holding pretty firm lines relative to character and integrity, and being all about others, if you will. And I think that's a blueprint that works pretty much in anything, not just coaching, but great teachers and business people as well. And but again, it's always about people and relationships for sure.
Coach Beilein, it wasn't just universities. It was high school, it was junior college, it was D2, it was D1.
I said one time I'm the most overpaid 7th grade social studies teacher in the world because that's how it all started. And it's funny. And we're talking about Dean Smith here, our first date. Kathleen and I are on our first date. And she says, what do you want to do? And I'm very confident of myself, but I'm a high school coach. And I said, you're going to see me on TV in one of those plaid sport coats that Dean Smith wears, right? And I'm going to be a Division I coach. And I think the date almost ended at that point. But she stuck with me through it all. And but I just think that's part, once again, when you have to battle through those things and go to junior college and drive vans and find apartments for your guys in Division III and Division II. Eating at Ponderosa was the big meal. If we won, we ate at Ponderosa. If we didn't, we went right home. And so those type of things get you tough, and you really sort of learn, coach, and it's part survival to make it too.
Well, it's all a matter of perspective. I remember my family, we would go to church on Sunday, and I was like 8 years old, and we would go to Ponderosa, and it was a treat. And I thought that was, like a steak dinner to an 8-year-old.
We used to, after the game, it would be like, it was the meal money. It was like, it was $5, or if they played really well, they might get 3 guys on a 20. Here's a 20, you 3 split it. They all got 7. They were pretty happy. It was better than the 5.
Yeah.
Better than the 5.
Coach Beilein, Coach Kruger, thank you for your contributions. Thank you for showing us that you can do it in many different ways, in many different stops.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We just saw two leaders of the game, and that transitions to two other leaders of the game, again, spanning many years, many decades, and impacting basketball in a lot of different ways, Chris.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Coach Williams, I mean, mega success here in Kansas and also at North Carolina. And I got one real good question, but I'll wait till he gets up here. And obviously, I'm an advanced metrics person. I know, Rip, you probably need the old NBA dudes. They don't like this, but I love analytics and I love the numbers. So I'm very, very interested in what Jerry Krause is going to come up and talk about. I'm going to call it the wizard. They'll know what I'm talking about.
Ah, okay, I can't wait for that. So let's look at the indelible mark that these two men have left on college basketball.
The preeminent stature of college basketball and its ongoing appeal has only happened because of great leaders. It has taken extraordinary coaches who build successful programs, mentor young men, and serve as guardians of the game. It has also taken brilliant contributors whose leadership and innovative minds have developed the sport into what it is today. Two of those remarkable individuals are legendary coach Roy Williams, a true champion and ambassador of college basketball, and the incomparable Jerry Krause, whose impact on the game for a half-century has been immense. Roy Williams learned the game of basketball from one of its all-time icons, and then went on to become a coaching legend himself. Groomed by Dean Smith during 10 years as an assistant at North Carolina, Williams chartered a head coaching voyage that set sail with a remarkable 15-year run at the University of Kansas, and then returned full circle to UNC, where he won 3 national championships. At Kansas, Williams' quick success brought a love affair with Jayhawk Nation as he built top-ranked teams year in and year out at an already tradition-rich program. His ability to recruit 5-star talent and combine that with crucial role players established team success that produced 418 wins, 14 straight NCAA tournament appearances, 4 Final Fours, and 2 championship game appearances. Returning to his alma mater in 2003, Williams took the always competitive Tar Heels to the highest of levels by continuing his strategy of fast break offense and aggressive in-your-face defense. He reached the pinnacle of the college basketball world by capturing national titles in 2005, 2009, and 2017. The results of his long tenures at 2 of college basketball's most storied programs is unmatched. He is the only coach in history to win 400 games at 2 schools. His 903 career wins are third most for a Division I coach. Combined, Williams led Kansas and North Carolina to 9 Final Fours, 18 regular season conference championships, and earned 9 National Coach of the Year awards. Clearly, Roy Williams stands among the most accomplished coaches in the history of the sport. An innovator, leader, and teacher throughout his life in basketball, Jerry Krause has impacted the game from many different angles. With Midwestern roots in rural Nebraska, Krause entered the coaching profession and served 17 seasons as the head coach at Eastern Washington from 1967 to 1985. He won 262 games and oversaw the Eagles' transitions from the NAIA to NCAA Division II and ultimately to Division I. Krause later spent 20 years in operations roles at Gonzaga, helping build the program into a national power. But his influence has gone way beyond coaching. He has been a pioneer in basketball research and coaching education. He was honored with the NABC Guardians of the Game Award for Advocacy in 2003 for his research in developing a standardized rim testing program. Krause has authored 13 books on coaching basketball and more than 30 instructional videos. His book, Basketball Skills and Drills, is widely considered to be the most utilized basketball fundamentals book in the world. This highly respected contributor to the game was inducted into the NAIA Hall of Fame in 2000. And now, he rightfully takes his place in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, two great leaders in college basketball, Coach Roy Williams and, of course, Jerry Krause. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Our final guests of the night. Coach Williams, I know you've been a part of the board of directors, right, for the NABC for many, many years. And you first saw, the vision of this building, this creation. Now you're sitting on stage and you see kind of the end result. Take me through it.
Very flattered. Good thing that we had Jim Haney and Jimmy Calhoun, Lon Kruger, all the old guys like me, but I'm not very creative. I'm a copier, so I had absolutely nothing to do with this. But I did think it was great that we have this. I thought it was in the game of basketball, it's so dominated by the NBA, and rightfully so in some ways. But I thought just having a college basketball experience, having a college basketball Hall of Fame should be extremely important to a lot of people, because we are reaching those youngsters when they get a lot of good things from us, hopefully. Some bad, probably also. But I think that what happened here is some great minds not mined. But I did think it was something that we needed. It's out of respect for the older guys in the game. And I was on the board, John Thompson and Coach Smith, and those guys were before me, and we were able to push this through. And Jimmy Haney deserves a lot of credit for pushing this thing, but it's been phenomenal.
Jerry, I spoke earlier about the wizard. You've been an innovator, as they say, with advanced metrics and analytics. I'm going to call you the godfather of analytics. And people see the Tin Man, the Lion, the Scarecrow, and Dorothy trying to get back home, the yellow brick road, and they go behind the curtain, and that's who they find is the real wizard. Mark Feud and Munson have had great success, no disrespect to them, but behind that curtain was Jerry Krause. Talk about what it was like to mentor those guys, and then to have this honor of finally being recognized, as I said before, as the godfather of advanced metrics.
When I first came to Gonzaga after 25 years at Eastern Washington, and followed it with 25 years at Gonzaga, we brought in this young crew of, we call them the Three Amigos, including Mark Few, and they thought they knew everything, but they didn't know much, but they could really recruit and set their expectations very high. And I came from very humble backgrounds. I'm a Nebraskan, native right here. 504 people in a little town called Cedar Bluffs, Nebraska. And, but I liked math, and analytics was a natural for me. And, but I broke into basketball. I was a terrible player. I was never with any of these guys up here. I couldn't make our JV team in college. And, but I loved basketball, and I broke in to our city auditorium all the time, had to go down a coal chute and play in the dark because I couldn't turn on the lights because dang watchman and the one policeman we had in town would come and find out about it. So I played in the dark. Didn't make any difference. I just built my love of the game. And it's just been a great ride. And you know, the experience of a Gonzaga is the frosting on the cake for me.
In working in the NBA now intensely for 2 years, I am amazed at the analytics that a league like that uses. I mean, they'll break. If Chris Walker scratches his nose 3 times on the day, they know that he's going to shoot 40% that day in the game that night. I mean, it is unbelievable. You now have went from an idea of analytics to now people get paid. This is a department. It's full time. It's salaried. To see it advance that far to the professional level, how surprised are you, or what is your reaction to see how much the world of analytics has expanded?
Well, when I started, you know, I was just a math guy. I taught math in high school and college, and I was interested in it, and we didn't know what we were doing. Analytics was nothing. Here I am today, and I have developed a simple, see, I work on the other end of the scale. I don't care about Roy's teams and some of the other big-time programs. What I care about is a little high school coach in some little town up in Nebraska, or the little international coach who has no assistants, and he has to find a way to measure what his basketball players and teams. So I've developed an analytics package for him. One person can keep the statistics, and we can give A, B, C, D, F grade to every player and every team at every game. And that's, you know, we're releasing it this month, actually, and it's going to be for the little guys. And that's the ones that needed the help. Really, I know I don't want to get on Roy because he has humble beginnings like I have, but, you know, there's not I don't really care about the big-time schools like Gonzaga, North Carolina. I want to help the little guys that really need the help.
Coach, you've obviously had seismic success in the business, but being a fan, I have to ask, did you recruit Michael Jordan, yes or no?
Yes.
What was that like?
Very lucky. No, I think in Jimmy, Lon, everybody said about the kids with character and talent. You know, everybody wants talent, but you have to have those kids who really mean something. And Michael had a great, great family, and I was the first coach to get really excited about Michael. And his mom and dad were great to me. Mom's still fantastic. So I was the first one to get excited about him, and I challenged him. And I was doing a conditioning program his freshman year. I made a mistake. I told Coach Smith, I think we need to do more conditioning in an organized manner before season started, because like when Larry played and Jimmy Delaney played, it was October 15th, you run the mile, and that was preseason conditioning. So it was a mistake that I said that, because Coach Smith said, okay, you do it. And so I did, and I tried to bury their butts every single day. And, Michael one day said that I want to be the best player that ever played here. And I said, well, you've got to work better than you did in high school. You got to work harder. And he said, I worked as hard as everybody else. And I said, oh, excuse me. I thought you just told me you wanted to be the best player to ever play there. You have no freaking chance. And I blasted him. And then 2 days later, because we did it 3 times a week, he came back and said, I want to talk to you at the end. And so I said, okay. And he came, and after everybody left, after 1 or 2 guys puked and everybody left, I got some Kansas players back there that know what I'm talking about too. But he said, I'm going to show you that nobody will ever outwork me. And he did. And he grew from 6'4.5" as a freshman to 6'6", much faster, quicker, stronger and everything. But his love and his focus and his desire was matched by no one. But yet he had to have good players with him, really good players. But Michael Jordan is the greatest to ever play the game. And you know, I'm 72-year-old and can't fight myself, but I would fight anybody that tries to say that anybody else is better, because by God, he's the greatest player to ever play the game. And yet, I've got some players here from Kansas. I had Mark Randall and Jeff Gellner here early. And my first year at at Kansas as a head coach, they gave me a chance. I mean, seriously, I was choice number 93. Bob Frederick, the athletic director, and Gene Budig, the chancellor, are the only 2 people that wanted me there. But those players, and again, Jeff Gellner and Mark Randall were here, and they were on that first team, and they gave me a chance and did what I asked them to do as hard as they could possibly do it, and that set the tone. And even all the way down to the player at Kansas, my last year, Wayne Simeon, is here, and those guys every year they tried to do what I asked, and they had, for some reason, had trust in me, and I knew that I would try to give them every single thing I had. And we have nobody from North Carolina here, because folks, be honest, it's hard to say, why don't you come and see me be honored? I mean, that's really not very comfortable to do. So I didn't tell the North Carolina players, I didn't tell Hubert Davis until yesterday what I was doing. And so a couple of the players grabbed me yesterday before the football game and said some things. But it's all about the players. And at the University of Kansas and the University of North Carolina, I worked extremely hard. And the relationship I have, Billy Thomas was from Shreveport, Louisiana. And I'm watching another guy on the tape. And I said, who's that guy that's making all those jump shots? And so we worked hard in recruiting. But Billy comes in here tonight, and what did I say to him? We took a team picture, and he was late. And he wonders, he said, I'm going to make him run after this is over with. But folks, Roy Williams is up here because I had great players. And we had some like Billy Thomas that nobody knew about that worked their butts off just like Rip did. And Larry Miller had something to do with me coming to North Carolina because my high school coach was a North Carolina fan, and he thought Larry Miller was his favorite player. And he's the one that talked me into going to college, because I never would have gone to college like what Jerry's saying. But players, I love you guys that are here, some people from Kansas that are here, because I was lucky. I coached at Kansas and North Carolina. But the young coaches that say something about that, they don't say it to my face, because I coached a JV team for 8 years. I sold freaking calendars to make a living. So I'm damn proud of what I did. But I'll tell you, people like Jerry and the people that are before me in the coaching profession, Luke Bryan has a song. It's Getting by Dirt. But in it, he describes every coach in here. Jimmy Calhoun, Lon Kruger, all of us. Because he said, find something you love to do and call it work. And I was able to do that for 48 years.
To put a period on that, Coach, and it's really well told, you sit in history as the only coach to win 400-plus games at 2 different schools. And you've already kind of gone there, but to put a period on your perspective, not everyone can say that they coached at 2 of the winningest schools ever, and you can.
Well, like I said, I was choice 93 at Kansas. Everybody thought we were going to go on probation, and we did. But so Margie Frederick's here, and her husband Bob was the AD, and Chancellor Gene Budig. Bob, for some reason, we met in Atlanta Airport for 2 hours, and he had a feeling that I was the right guy for the job. And then those kids, they did give me a chance, and that built everything. And then Wayne Simeon, again, was sitting in the meeting when I told him I was leaving to go into North Carolina. And that was the toughest thing that I've ever had to do in my entire life. But I thought it was the right thing at that time. Nick Collison was here earlier, and North Carolina had asked me to go back 3 years before that, and I wouldn't do it because I'd promised Nick Collison I'd be there his entire career. And I couldn't figure out how I would tell Nick Collison I was leaving. But sitting in there, and they're standing in there in that meeting, and Wayne's back there somewhere with his wife Katie, it was the lowest point in my life. I felt dirty when I left that meeting, but I still thought we'd changed athletic directors, and my job I felt like had really changed, and my love for the game was when I was on the court. I loved everything, but the other times it wasn't quite as good. And so luckily North Carolina, I didn't insult them quite as bad maybe when I said no in 2000, and Coach Smith asked me to come back, and same kind of thing, that the kids bought into what I was saying, and we won a championship our second year, and then won 2 more, and it was I feel very honored to be that Jimmy and I both won 3 national championships, and he had Rip, and I had a lot of guys like Rip, and but the kids at Kansas and the kids at North Carolina, that's my family. And the only thing I ever cared about was my family and my basketball team. And that's all I cared about. Yeah, I like to tee it up with, when I get a chance with my buddies, but those guys, and see the look on Billy's face, and a couple of weeks ago seeing Jock Vaughn coaching the Brooklyn Nets and going to see one of his games, I found something I loved.
That's awesome. Jerry, what's this moment like for you, being inducted into the Hall of Fame?
It's phenomenal, really. I represent all the little guys of the world, I guess. That we came up from very humble beginnings, and you know, a Nebraska kid that played, you know, at a town of 504 people and had to play in the dark, break into the gym and play in the dark, keep the night watchman away from seeing us. And it's just like, it's very humbling.
Yeah.
It's very humbling.
But well-deserved.
Absolutely.
Well-deserved for both of you. Thank you for joining
You know, I
us.
say one thing, everybody in here, you care about kids, because somebody helped us, and my high school coach helped me.
Yeah.
And that's all we cared about, is I wanted to be like my high school coach. And he's 82 years old. I spoke to him this morning, and those are the Jerry Krauses. Because I mean, even in my home, 6 years in my home, there was no car. The first time I went home from Chapel Hill back to the mountains, I hitchhiked. And so now I'd be afraid to do that. Somebody may be a Duke fan.
One of the all-time coaching greats, storytellers, Roy Williams, and Hall of Fame contributor, Jerry Krause. Thank you. We are moments away from concluding our evening. Thank you for being a fantastic audience. I hope you guys have enjoyed the stories as much as I have.
Yeah, again, coming into this place for the first time, being a fan of most of these coaches and following their careers from far away, watching Rip play, and it's just been an amazing moment for me, and I want to thank the NABC for giving me the opportunity to be Robin tonight to you.
Let's not get carried away.
Okay.
So all the inductees, if we could, now is the time we're going to conclude it with the official induction and presentation of the Hall of Fame medals. So if all the inductees could line up, and this is the true test now, alphabetically, if we can. And helping with the medal presentation, our NABC Associate Executive Director, Nate Pomaday, and CEO of the College Basketball Experience, Kevin Henderson. They're all sorting out their A's, their B's, their C's, their D's. All right, so are we set, gentlemen? Okay. We begin our first medal presentation with the winner of 829 college basketball games, Coach John Beli.
Three-time national championship coach at UConn, Jim Calhoun.
One of the Big East's best ever, Richard Rip Hamilton.
Pioneer in basketball research, and coaching education, Jerry Krause.
Kansas native and now Hall of Fame coach, Lon Kruger.
Tar Heel All-American, Mr. Larry Miller.
The scoring machine, Frank Selvey, represented by his wife, Barbara.
One of the greatest players in Providence Friar basketball history, Jimmy Walker, represented by his daughter, Sania Harrison.
nine-time National Coach of the Year at Kansas and North Carolina, Roy Williams.
So on behalf of the NABC and the NABC Foundation, you are officially inducted into the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2022. Congratulations.
And thank you. That'll wrap up our ceremony tonight. Thank you to the inductees. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thanks for such a special night, everyone.